Let me tell you, if you'd told me 6 months ago, I'd be standing on my own loading dock at nearly 9 o'clock at night watching three HOA board members zip tie a community property members only banner across my bay door while some guy in a neon vest tried to staple an eviction notice to my German Shepherd, well, I'd have said you were out of your mind. But that's exactly where I found myself. And let me just say the bullhorn in Claudia's manicured hand was crackling so loud I almost couldn't hear her announce that I had exactly 15 hours to vacate my own property because sunrise yoga was scheduled for dawn, right where I stood. I'm Gavin Portman. And look, I'm the kind of guy who minds his business, keeps to himself, metal fabricator by trade, allergic to small talk, happiest with a welding torch in one hand and a mug of coffee in the other. I bought my old brick warehouse on the edge of Maple Quarry District, specifically so I could live upstairs, work downstairs, and be left the hell alone. My hobbies are simple welding black coffee that'll melt your teeth and avoiding neighborhood drama like it's a communicable disease. But Claudia Rindle, the HOA president from across the street at Foundry Commons, she had other ideas. Her hair had the volume of a legal brief, her smile could freeze traffic, and the first time she cornered me with one of her glossy pamphlets, she said in a voice so sweet it gave me a cavity, "We're all one community here, you know. Your building is just as much a part of our vision as the rest." I nodded the way you do at Thunder, hoping if I stayed still, maybe it'd pass without incident. Spoiler, it didn't. From day one, Claudia didn't see my warehouse as private property. Nope. She looked at it like it was just waiting to be added to her community vision board. In Claudia's world, property lines were just wavy suggestions and legal documents. Well, those were up for creative interpretation. The harassment started with passive-aggressive notes slipped under my door. "Your garage door color reads as aggressive charcoal," one declared, as if paint could have feelings. Pretty soon the fines started. I got one for unauthorized whirring noises, possibly tools, swear to God. That's a quote from the citation sent to me certified mail. I was getting fined for using power tools in my own workshop. That was just the start. Claudia began scheduling pottery nights in my loading bay, just posting my address on Facebook, inviting the whole subdivision over, never bothering to ask me. Confused folks would show up with wine and clay, and I'd have to turn them away while Claudia sat across the street making marks on her clipboard, writing up incidents of non-cooperation. Then she snuck into my building, called it a noise assessment, stood right there and announced with the seriousness of a priest at confession that it smelled like industry, and she was deeply concerned. Imagine being scolded for working in an industrial building, right? Next thing I know, drones are circling my skylights, peering in. Claudia's clipboard squad measured my planter boxes one Saturday, said they weren't whimsical enough for the neighborhood aesthetic. I made the fatal mistake of picking up when she called once, and she added me to the HOA WhatsApp group, which meant my phone blew up all night with debates over mailbox height. After I blocked the group, Claudia mailed me a newsletter. Get this right. There on page 3 was a beautiful rendering of my warehouse labeled "The Forge at Foundry Commons, coming this spring." She had invented a whole schedule of yoga wine tastings, artisanal workshops, membership tiers, and all. It was like finding out someone signed your house up for a timeshare. Tuesday night, she called an urgent alignment session at the HOA's model home. I watched from my window as her crew stenciled community property on my wall in chalk paint, but still. At 8:47 p.m., she marched up and personally served me a 15-hour reallocation notice, her so-called legal basis, a photocopied page from a 1991 city brochure about public-private creative spaces stapled to a Zillow printout from before I even owned the place. She had the confidence of someone who thinks any piece of paper with a signature font is the law. She actually called a tow truck on my own car, claimed it was illegally parked on community property, and posted on 3 social media platforms that sunrise yoga was happening in my living room at 6 a.m. sharp. That was my breaking point. I called the city records office, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone, waited on hold forever. "Finally, I get someone," she whispers, like we're talking state secrets. Turns out the overlay covenant Claudia kept quoting never passed. Not legal. Never even adopted. No power at all. Then I called my title insurance folks. They sent over a PDF so thick it could double as a doorstop. Exclusive possession fee. Simple. All the phrases you want to see if you like sleeping at night. Bottom line, this was my place. Period. So 6:15 a.m. rolls around and here comes Claudia leading a parade of women in matching yoga pants, wielding bolt cutters, Bluetooth speakers, yoga mats, the works. But they weren't the only ones who showed up. See, at midnight, I'd sent a little email blast to every city department I could think of just in case. We had quite the welcoming party city code enforcement in their official trucks. Police sergeant, whose small world happened to be a former client of mine, and recognized my dog on sight county recorder, even a guy with the plat maps tucked under his arm. Claudia's face, I wish I'd had a camera, watching her confidence drain away as city code enforcement stepped up and asked for her covenant. She handed over her evidence brochure, a mood board with magazine clippings, and a sticky note that said, Heritage Feels in purple gel pen. The officer looked at it like she'd handed him a finger painting and asked for a court order. The sergeant asked who exactly gave them permission to enter. Claudia replied, collective stewardship. His reply, that's not a person, ma'am. The county recorder laid out the official plat maps, traced my property lines with a pen, and said straight-faced, this property's been privately owned since 1928. No easements, no overlays, no community rights. End of story. Claudia tried to pull up something on her phone about heritage zones, but the recorder just waved her off. Facebook isn't a source of law. And let me tell you, when the citations came, they came heavy. Criminal trespass for the bolt cutters, property defacement for the graffiti, fraud for the bogus reallocation notice. And that security volunteer in the vest turned out he was a real estate agent angling for early access to my building. His brokerage issued a press release so fast I swear you could smell the toner burning. The city pulled security footage from the traffic cam, and we all gathered around a laptop to watch Claudia clear as day dragging her banner across my bay door, narrating out loud, "This is so community-focused. We're really bringing everyone together." The police sergeant had to pause the video so the officers could stop laughing. At the emergency town hall, I went in armed, blew up my title deed on foam board side by side with Claudia's overlay covenant big draft not adopted stamped across the bottom. When I showed them to the crowd, the room lost it. Even the judge had to stifle a smile. Claudia was front row, turning redder than a stop sign. The verdict was swift. Permanent injunction, HOA forbidden from contacting me, except through legal channels. Damages paid for paint removal, 6 days lost work. And my favorite part, hazard pay for the emotional distress caused to my German Shepherd, who, no joke, developed a stapler phobia. The bill came to $47,000 straight from the HOA's funds, meaning every household in Foundry Commons was about to see their dues spike, all because of Claudia's power trip. But the real cherry on top, the judge ordered Claudia to do 200 hours of community service not for her HOA but for the Oakmere Historic Archives. Saturdays spent filing real covenants, learning the difference between real law and whatever she dreamt up in her scrapbook. The judge made it clear, no delegating, no counting HOA work, supervised service only. You could hear Claudia gasp clear to the back row. She slumped into her chair, looking like her fancy hair just gave up the fight. So, yeah, that's the story of how a metal fabricator, his nervous German Shepherd, and a whole lot of legal paper put an end to one woman's fantasy of turning my home into her community clubhouse. And you better believe every time I see a yoga mat now, I laugh. But let me ask you, where do you draw the line between community and overreach? When does bringing people together turn into bulldozing someone's rights? I want to know. Have you ever had a neighbor or an HOA try something like this? Drop your story below. Tell me what you would have done, and hey, if you think justice was served, give me a sign, hit that share. Let's hear your take. Because when it comes to property and power, the conversation's just getting started.